In the small African town of Mbale, where tradition and modernity often clashed under the sweltering sun, there lived a respected patriarch named Chief Okoro, whose wealth was not only measured in land and cattle, but in the influence he held over the community and the respect he commanded within his family. And Chief Okoro had been a man of wisdom, known for resolving disputes in the village square and lending a hand to those who sought justice or help, and his compound was always a gathering place for neighbors, relatives, and strangers who admired the strength of his household. Yet beneath the surface of this seemingly united family, there were cracks, jealousies, resentments, and unspoken grievances that only revealed their true depth after the old man's death, when the reading of his will transformed love into suspicion, loyalty into betrayal, and kinship into rivalry. For Chief Okoro had 4 children: Adaze, the eldest daughter known for her gentleness and compassion; Chukwudi, the first son whose arrogance was as large as his ambition; Ifeoma, the second daughter who had grown restless with tradition and dreamed of city life; and the youngest, Obina, a quiet soul who was often overshadowed by the others, but carried his father's humility in his heart. And their mother, Mama Ngozi, had passed away years earlier, leaving their father to raise them with stern discipline and deep love, always reminding them that family unity was their greatest inheritance. And when Chief Okoro fell gravely ill, the household rallied around him, though each child secretly wondered what portion of his vast estate they would inherit. For there were acres of fertile farmland, a fleet of transport trucks, 2 large houses in the city, and several businesses that brought in steady income, and neighbors whispered that whoever controlled these assets would rise to prominence in Mbale and beyond, for such wealth was not common in those parts. And on the day of his burial, the compound overflowed with mourners. Drummers beat rhythms of farewell, women wailed in traditional tones, men paid respects to a leader who had touched their lives. But even as the soil closed over his coffin, the siblings' minds were restless, for they knew the lawyer's visit in a week's time would determine the course of their futures. And when that day arrived, the family gathered in the sitting room of the compound, the air tense with expectation as the lawyer, a gray-haired man named Barrister Easy, opened a brown envelope and began to read the will in a slow, deliberate voice, declaring that the farmland and cattle were to be shared equally among the children, but the city houses and businesses were to be handed solely to Obina, the youngest, because Chief Okoro believed he had the patience and humility to manage them wisely, while Adaze was given a smaller portion of money in recognition of her sacrifices, and Chukwudi, who had always believed himself the rightful heir as the eldest son, was left only with the transport trucks, while Ifeoma received an investment fund with a clause to oversee a scholarship in her mother's name. And silence fell over the room before tension erupted like a volcano, as Chukwudi thundered with anger, demanding how he could be sidelined in favor of Obina, accusing Adaze of conspiracy and Obina of manipulation. And Ifeoma shrugged, but soon found herself in the storm, when Chukwudi declared the will a fraud. And though Barrister Easy assured them it was genuine, the seeds of discord had already been planted, and from that day forward, the once close-knit siblings became rivals, as Chukwudi refused his inheritance and launched bitter court battles, accusing Obina of forgery, spreading rumors that he bewitched their father, while Adaze tried and failed to mediate. And Ifeoma, though busy in the city, was drawn back each year to quarrels during the scholarship events, and the villagers gossiped, "See how wealth has divided them," and court hearings dragged on, while Obina struggled to manage the businesses, as Chukwudi poisoned his reputation. And even the sisters fell apart as suspicion grew, until Mama Ngozi's grave, once adorned with flowers, became neglected, and tragedy struck one night, when a fire consumed one of Obina's businesses, leaving him in ashes, comforted by Adaze but accused by Chukwudi. And their fight grew so loud the villagers intervened, reminding them of the shame they brought, and Obina prayed for reconciliation, asking God to heal what greed had broken. And months later, during a heated court session, the weary judge ordered traditional mediation under the Iroko tree, where elders heard their grievances, and one elder who had been Chief Okoro's friend, spoke piercing words. "Your father gave each of you what matched your destiny, but instead of honoring his wisdom, you dishonor his memory, for wealth can be rebuilt, but family cannot be replaced." And silence fell. Adaze wept, Ifeoma lowered her head, and even Chukwudi was shaken, And that night, Adaze prayed in her father's chair on the veranda, until Obina joined her confessing. He wanted peace more than wealth, admitting inheritance meant nothing without joy. And though Adaze saw Chukwudi's pride was deep, she had no answer. While in the city, Ifeoma wrestled with guilt, despite her boutique success, hearing whispers of abandonment, until she dreamt of her mother looking disappointed at the family grave, and awoke determined to act. And when they gathered again, Chukwudi, bitter from yet another failed court attempt, accused Obina of bribing judges, but Obina remained calm, saying the will was valid, and he was no enemy, and Chukwudi thundered that Obina took what was his, until Ifeoma rose and shocked them all, scolding Chukwudi for abandoning the trucks their father gave him, accusing him of wasting time fighting instead of building, and Adaze beamed with pride at her courage, while Obina lowered his head in gratitude. And weeks passed until Obina proposed sharing profits with Chukwudi if he ended the court battles, and though Chukwudi hesitated, he agreed after villagers mocked him for dragging the family's name in mud, while Adaze organized family gatherings with traditional meals and prayers, and for the first time in years they sat in peace, breaking kola nuts, drinking palm wine, and toasting to their parents, even as Chukwudi reluctantly clinked glasses with Obina, and though faint, it was the beginning of healing. Yet new trials arose as strangers eyed the farmland, and Adaze warned unity was the only shield, and Chukwudi, unwilling to let outsiders reap their father's sweat, finally began working the trucks and building a small company, while Ifeoma expanded her boutique, and honored her mother through scholarships, and Adaze remained their anchor, ensuring prayers and memories of their parents endured, until one night on the veranda, Obina told Chukwudi he would trade everything just to have the closeness they once shared, and Chukwudi's heart softened, as he admitted pride blinded him, confessing he was ready to stop fighting, and Adaze wept while Ifeoma clapped her hands in joy, urging them to rebuild their family stone by stone, and so they began acting like a family again, still arguing but without bitterness, until villagers respected them once more, saying, "The Okoro children remember who they are," and laughter returned to the compound with children running, relatives visiting, and on their father's death anniversary, they gathered at his grave with flowers and prayers, as Adaze whispered, "Papa, we fought and wounded each other, but we are healing now. Your wisdom was not wasted," and thus the will that once divided them became the lesson that saved them, teaching that wealth may come and go, but bonds of blood, if nurtured with humility and forgiveness, withstand even the fiercest storms. And the story of Chief Okoro's children spread as a cautionary tale, reminding all that greed destroys but love restores. And to you, dear listener, may this story remind you that unity is the greatest inheritance, forgiveness is richer than gold, and no court can preserve family if pride reigns. So thank you for staying with me through this story, and if it touched your heart, do not forget to subscribe and share, so others may learn from the tale of the will that divided a family.